And finally, we also have Emily Dills, a member of or representative of the Seattle Nanny Network. Welcome. And so today we'll be collecting poll questions, and so if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in. Throughout this conversation, the council member staff will make sure that your voice is heard, and that this is an opportunity for you to really ask the question that you've always wanted to know. The other thing that will happen is there is also the ability to hear the webinar in Spanish. If you'd like to hear the webinar in Spanish, a slide has been presented, but you can call the phone number 712-451-1100. And the PIN number is 493675. We currently have interpreters on the line, and so I'm going to hold on a moment just so the interpreters get the opportunity to present the information. Cool. As I said earlier, there's going to be multiple polls, and this is really an opportunity for folks to have an interactive discussion. And in my view, this is an opportunity for government to be in your living room and talking about domestic workers. What better way to do it than online? And so, with that being said, the first thing that we're going to do is to just kind of check in on who do we have joining us today. So if you're When we start the poll, there'll be a prompt that pops up on the screen, and we'll review the question and give you some time to respond. So if you're a domestic worker, please feel free to check that box. If you've hired a domestic worker, maybe your employer, please feel free to check that in. And if you're just here to weigh in and a representative, please feel free to do that as well.
I know I don't have the microphone, but I can speak really loud. Can we give Mozart a huge round of applause?
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, as we wait for the poll results, Councilmember Mosqueda, would you, just for a moment, I know this is a bit off script, just share with us why it was so important for you to do this, this online?
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us online. Can everyone see us? Can everyone hear us? Write us in if you can't. Send us a text message or write us an email or hit us on Twitter and Facebook. If you can't hear us, let us know. We want to make sure that you can hear us in your living room, as Mozart said. Thank you, Mozart and 21 Progress, for facilitating this discussion. For me, it was super important for us to do a interactive kind of intuitive or new way of engaging with constituents, because not everybody can come to City Hall. Not everybody can join us to testify. Not everybody can see us on Seattle Channel, which if you haven't, the two of us were on Seattle Channel the other day talking about domestic workers' Bill of Rights. This is the third, well, we've had 3 in-person listening sessions, so this is actually the 4th listening session we've had, and not everybody can join us in community because a lot of people have to work. So for us, this was an opportunity for folks to maybe engage even when they're at home. Maybe they're vacuuming, maybe the kiddo's asleep, maybe they're taking care of their loved one who's an elder and they have a chance to plug in and to log in and ask questions of us. We wanted to make sure that domestic workers, whether they're workers themselves or employers, had a chance to weigh in-person forums and listening sessions, and also with this online forum. So this is our 4th and last listening session. So excited to have you guys join us. Thank you to this entire panel for being here. Thanks, Mozart, for facilitating. And this is really a way for us to shape policy rooted in what workers and employers want to see as we think about changing laws and policies for domestic workers.
We're going to transition to Doris, and just to make an introduction again. Doris is a nanny and also a member of Working Washington and the Seattle Domestic Workers Alliance, and so we're going to transition to her question. What our question in terms of how we got here and why we're in this room?
Right. Thank you all. Thank you, Council Teresa Mosqueda and Johnny. Thank you, Emily. Well, thank you all for joining us. We're really happy being here. A little bit about me. I'm a nanny. I've been a nanny for 7 years, and currently I just started working at Working Washington, supporting the Bill of Rights. We are house cleaners. We're employers. We're all trying to get together and shape, like Teresa was saying, shape the new bill, and we're really excited to do it. So.
So if you want to pass it on to Johnny, and Johnny, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you into the room.
Hello, everybody. My name is Johnny Arenas. I am a member of Casa Latina, and I've been working like a domestic worker from 10 years. I used to be having my full job, and my part-time was cleaning over there in Las Vegas. But then being here in Seattle, being part of the Casa Latina, I've been working so happily, being helping others in their house, and I'm so grateful to be here today and working with Councilmember Mosqueda. And we're working with the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, and I know for sure we're going to have a new law that's going to be helping everybody want here.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I'd like to add a little bit quickly what we're trying to reach out to our community so that we can join together and create this collective power that we need so that our voices are heard. And we're trying to create higher standards. We're trying to make a better living out of our careers, right? Better opportunities for everybody, and that we're treated fair and justly.
Emily, do you want to share a little bit about what brings you into the room?
I will. Thank you, Mozart, and thank you, everybody, for having me here today. I'm thrilled. A little bit about my background. I began working as a nanny in college, too. I have that background. I'm very, very passionate about what you're doing here now. I feel like I've been waiting for it to happen for 20 years. I've been waiting for you to come along and put together this foundation so that we can have more basic rights for a industry that I feel is pretty unregulated. I started in the industry and pretty quickly realized that we didn't have the regulatory framework that other basic workers have the right to. So I think that we're really looking at bringing the employers and the workers to the table to have this conversation. This is the very beginning. I know it's been done around the nation, but it's new here in Washington, and I'm very excited to participate. I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of 20 years ago. We just didn't have anything. Like if you were to be paid taxes, it was a big deal. If you were to get any paid time off, it was a big deal. What my company is doing is to try to create regulations in a non-regulated industry by having, offer letters and employment agreements and paid time off and that kind of thing.
Emily,
so,
just for a moment, for folks at home who might not be familiar with the network, could you
sure.
Share with us? Could you briefly just share with us
An employment agency. Yeah. So we're really advocating for both of the workers and the employers who hire them, who really need the guidance, and because they don't know, right? The industry standards are not there. It's not regulated. Yeah. Thank you.
And for folks listening at home, the folks that are making sure that everything works operationally have shared that we are on a couch and we're passing a microphone. And so if you can't hear us, it's because the microphone must get passed. And so at times we may repeat the question. All good. I think hopefully you know that we're really committed to making sure that this is accessible. And so we're going to be patient and take our time and work it out. Okay. So at this point, we're going to just check in on the survey response. And so it seems as if 22% of the people who are currently on this webinar are workers. 22% have hired a worker, and 56% are here to learn, which is fantastic because I think what we want to make sure of, and Johnny, as we kind of bridge into, we want to make sure that we're listening and that whatever gets passed when it comes to domestic workers comes out of both town halls, this experience, as well as all the advocacy work you folks have been doing in terms of listening to the people who will be impacted by these decisions and these policies. So as we move forward, I want to just check in if there's any other questions that folks are seeing in the audience or online. And if you don't know, if you're currently watching at home, you can type in a question. We will be collecting it. And I also want to double back just from an accessibility perspective because I'm so grateful that the office decided to make sure Spanish was available. So if you want to listen to the webinar in Spanish, the phone number is 712-451-1100. And the PIN number is 493675. And if you're currently with us on Facebook, please feel free to share this post if you want more people involved and to learn more about what the council member and what our city is actually doing, because I think this policy is really about families. Okay, so right now we've come to Councilmember Mosqueda. We really want to kind of get a sense of what the process has been from the policy perspective, and so if you could share that with us, we'd really appreciate it. So just for folks who haven't been reading all the bills, the council member can kind of explain what's going on, and then you can kind of reference the Seattle.gov website if you want more information.
Thank you so much. I hope that everybody at home takes a second to really applaud this incredible panel and our facilitator for being part of this discussion tonight. Thank you guys again for being here. I've seen these faces over the last 3 months in various forums, and I really want to say this is exactly why I wanted to pull together this panel. For those who haven't had a chance to meet these individuals or to see us on Seattle Channel, this is a policy that's really rooted in the experience of domestic workers and those who have tried to employ nannies and those agencies who are trying to make sure that everyone knows their rights as workers and employers. We here in Seattle have been on the forefront of leading by example, showing what it means to lift up the lowest wage workers by passing $15 an hour minimum wage, by passing sick leave and wage theft protections. And now we're asking for those same protections to think about how we extend those protections to those who are the most vulnerable workers. Workers who work in our homes, isolated many times, working, taking care of our kiddos as nannies, taking care of our elders as long-term care providers, taking care of our lawns and taking care of our homes by cleaning them. We want to make sure that those who've been excluded from some of our labor protections in the past really have the opportunity to benefit from some of these protections. And then employers who want to do the right thing but don't have a place to go right now to ask those questions know where to go and have a place so they can get their questions answered. That is why we have initiated this policy-making process rooted in community. I said before that there was 3 listening sessions. One started 3 months ago in the South End. We were in West Seattle, Southwest Seattle. The second one 2 months ago was in Central District. Last month we were up in the North End, and today we're trying to make ourselves available online for everyone who couldn't be there in person. So this is really a policy that is being informed by all of you and the community members at large. We are also looking at best practices. You mentioned that this is a policy that 8 other states have implemented. And it wouldn't be possible for us to move forward without the help and the guidance from people who've come and participated in this process. I want to thank again Seattle Nanny Network. Thank you for all of your work and for all the work you do to empower and educate the workers who currently come to your organization, your company, so that they know their rights and they have the opportunity to connect with great employers. Thank you. Thank you so much to Seattle Domestic Workers Alliance, to Casa Latina, to Working Washington, to all the folks who have brought forward stories so that we can actually have our policies informed by that lived experience. We've talked a lot over the last 3 months about how workers need access to minimum wages, how they need to be able to take a break when they're working 8, 10, 12-hour days, how important it is for workers who've spent their entire careers working as domestic workers to be able to save for retirement or know where to go when they've been injured on the job. This is personal for me as well. My mother-in-law, born in Guatemala, she immigrated here with my now husband when he was 11 years old, and she continues to work as a domestic worker, as a nanny. I want to make sure that everyone in our city has the rights that we've afforded to many other workers here, and that we recognize the work of domestic workers as truly the backbone of this economy, as I think you said before on Seattle Channel. Their work makes it possible for the rest of us to go to work, and we want to respect and honor that work. So What we will do after today is take the feedback we've received in the 3 listening sessions and your feedback from today and move forward with drafting a Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. We will have something ready to share with you, the public, in about 2 to 3 weeks. So look for something from us in June. And then we will have opportunities for folks to provide feedback and really get your input on this process. We also want to make sure that this is reflective of the workers themselves and the employers who come forward, so this will be a process going forward. Thank you again for all of your time. And in the future, I think we will be judged by how we lift up our most vulnerable in our community in these dark times. This process is really our effort to make sure that we listen to those who are the most vulnerable and act with urgency to hear those voices and change policies. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember, for your remarks. For folks listening at home, maybe you're on the couch just like us. What I want to offer is kind of what are the next steps in terms of what you can expect. After we collect some questions from the audience, we'll ask some of our panelists, what are the key parts of this policy that is really, really important both for workers and families and the employers that they work with. There'll be 2 more opportunities to answer poll questions. That's really so you can have a sense of who's in the room. As we already shared, there's a multitude of people in the room. People who are just interested in the broader Seattle community, workers, as well as people who hire workers. And so with that being said, there'll also be another opportunity to ask questions. So as we kind of go into the details of what will be in place and why it's important and the personal experiences of our panelists in terms of how and what shapes this policy, I really want to encourage you folks to ask questions. There will be 2 more opportunities, and you will get the opportunity to share this with other people. So thank you again so much, and hopefully the multiple opportunities for polls and questions really lets you feel like in this current age of divisiveness that we're really seeking questions and feedback, and now is the right time to offer it. So thank you again also, Councilmember, for also giving us the timeline. So folks listening at home, you can also have a sense of when you'll know your questions are incorporated and how those questions might be incorporated and who's really making decisions in your city hall. So with that, do we have questions from the audience? Wow, that's a great question. So one of the questions that recently came from the audience, especially as some of the policies make national news, isn't Seattle busy already? Isn't there enough going on? Why are we tackling something like a national domestic workers' rights campaign? And just before I pass it to the panelists, I also want to offer that one of the things that brings me into the room is not just because I support this policy, but as the father of 4 children under the age of 8, my wife and I are social workers. And so we really, as middle-class folks who have working-class jobs, we really want to make sure that we do get a better understanding of this, because for 2 busy professionals, even as a panelist, like I want to make sure that the people taking care of my children are treated fairly, and that bad policies really create an environment where, folks who aren't wealthy, aren't able to kind of identify really great workers who feel trapped by our current policy. So I do want to offer that, not to be neutral, but to also offer that, tonight is my daughter's first track practice. But I decided to come here because I think what's most important is that childcare for everyone is accessible, and that the workers that make sure that my family can go is effective. And so I do want to set that stage because I think that, domestic work really is the backbone of anything that's possible, and I couldn't have any role in the organization I'm in without the work of domestic workers. So thank you for folks who represent that community. So with that being said, panelists, help folks understand, what really is important about the policy. Like, when you were listening to people, I read that Casa Latina had listening sessions. You folks have monthly meetings. Help folks at home understand what went on, because I think people may not have an understanding of what people were saying. And so with that, we'll start with Emily in terms of what folks have been struggling with in terms of sick leave and things like that, and we'll kind of go through from there so you really get a sense of what you folks have been hearing and what's necessary to really make sure we move forward. And then we'll close with the council member helping us understand, is Seattle busy enough, right? So please help us understand that to kind of close us out.
I think from my perspective, being an agency and working with companies and working with HR departments, I am acutely aware of just how busy we are right now. I think that people are overburdened and overwhelmed and stressed beyond measure, really, in our current times. So what I'm hearing are, how do we find solutions so that people can go to work? They have that support system. They're able to outsource the domestic chores like childcare, like gardening, like housekeeping, so that they can go and do the important work that this person mentions that we're busy doing. We're really looking to care for the people who are the foundation, so that we can go to work and get things accomplished. But I think that's a great question, and I think that's exactly why we're here right now doing what we're doing.
Could you speak a little bit, because I think, we're a little bit ahead of the schedule. We might be able to
Sure. Perfect.
In terms of, what are the key parts of the policy that do make it urgent? Because I know sick leave is really important, so I think there might be a way for us to get ahead. Can you repeat the question?
Right, and the question was, what are the important policies that we're looking to address at this moment in time with going forward with the legislation? Does that sound right? Okay. I think that sick leave is critical. I think that we're looking at a population of workers who are completely left out of really basic rights. And if you don't have the ability to take time to get well and take care of yourself, you can't work. So that's a pretty fundamental.
And I share, as a nanny, I know by experience that it's as important as we come to work as important for the nanny families, or the families to go to work. But at the same time, they want us, they want us to be safe, to be healthy, so that we can provide a better care for their kids, for their family, which is, the main goal after all. And part of this policy is to give the nannies and domestic workers the opportunity to take sick leave and not being, feeling bad about it or being paid for being absent. It's something huge that a lot of nannies don't really count with, and this policy will make that possible, which will be a great opportunity for us to keep growing and to give the great work we do taking care of our kids.
I'm going to be sharing this with all the audience too, and everybody that who live here in Seattle. I know this policy is going to be opening a new door that's going to be protecting everybody that we are working here, like domestic workers. We are the people that we care your houses. We are the people we care about the elders. We are the people that we care about the babies, your kiddos. That you can go to work and we taking care of everything. But we don't have a policy that protects us. Personally, I'm so lucky. My employers, they'll be so nice with me. And be a member of Casa Latina, it's broke my heart sometimes, because co-workers, they come to me crying and they say, Johnny, we don't have a medical insurance. We don't have nothing to, in case that we have an injury. Another day, one of my colleagues, she was crying on my shoulder and say, we've been abusing for a long time. We are invisible. We are not part of any law that protecting us. And Teresa Mosqueda, the council, she's been helping us. She's been hearing us. And the sessions that we've been having is like we have a person that who's behind us. And I know for sure the city of Seattle is busy right now. But then she's taking care of us too. She is working with us. We are not fighting. We are working. Because then I want to tell you this. With a new policy, we're going to be the example to follow, not only here in Seattle, in the whole state. And I've been hearing it's not only Seattle, it's another state, even working with domestic workers. And I am here represented by myself. And behind me, is a lot of people, a lot of voices that they have a lot of questions, that they need help, that they want to. We are getting older and we don't have not saving money or something that we have to have that we're going to be just right there in the future. But the more important, in case that we get an injury in the house, we have the ability that we can go to the hospital. And right now we don't have it.
I think that's a really important part. The workers' compensation that we don't get, not nannies or house cleaners or, other domestic workers. We lack of those rights, and we, as many other, employees from different companies, they get those. Why wouldn't we get those? I mean, we're working in your houses with your families, watching over your kids, loving them as they were ours, and cleaning your houses as they were our houses, and so we deserve a little retribution, if you want to call it that. So we really want to support this and go farther. So we're really excited. Thank you.
Fantastic. The good news that I want to make everybody aware of is that I feel the employers really want to do the right thing. I hear all the time how much employers want guidance and want to do the right thing.
I don't know about you guys at home, but I'm really excited about this conversation. I think you can probably feel the energy around the desire to make the policy changes for both the employers and the employees. And as you said, it's long overdue. As we see federal and state policies change over time, the community that's been left out is often domestic workers. And that means that they're in the gray market. That means that they're left out of many of the protections that we would assume that they have. So I'm really excited about this. I'm also really excited that the policy is being informed by these discussions that we're having. One of the questions that was asked online was, why now? Aren't you guys a little busy? And I think everybody can tell from the last 2 or 3 weeks, if they've been following City Hall, we are very busy. There's a lot going on. There's many community forums, and there's a lot of energy in the city. What I have to say is this is why it is so important that we get a more representative democracy. Because as a woman and as a person of color, as an individual who has family members who are immigrants, we know that it is mostly women and people of color and immigrants who have been working as domestic workers. And it is so critical that we elevate their voice and we bring their issues to the forefront. Because for far too long, women and immigrants and people of color have been told, we'll get to your issue. Just wait in line. The time's not now. So yes, we are busy, but the time is now to step forward and make sure that all of these workers, including domestic workers, have the basic protections that we would afford to other workers in this city. I'm really excited that this is a conversation about, yes, extending protections of labor standards, but it is more important that we elevate the voice and experience of workers and employers. And many of the employers who've been able to then go to work and be part of the workforce are also women. Many individuals have been able to enter into the workforce by making sure that there is somebody there to take care of their elder or their kiddo. And so it is a gender justice issue. It is an economic justice issue, and it is a racial justice issue that we stand up and act with urgency on domestic workers. We are busy, and this is exactly the right time for us to be acting on this. So I'm very excited about the relationships that have been formed to create this policy, that it has been rooted, again, in the stories that we've heard from employers and employees, and that we're taking first steps so that we can potentially begin to change state laws. Clearly, some of the things around unemployment insurance and workers' compensation are state-level issues, but we are going to push the envelope and see what we can do at the city level to push the state and nation into the right direction. And we have 8 other states to learn from, so we're not reinventing the wheel or going off script or totally rogue. We are actually looking at best practices and acting with the urgency that this community and their employers deserve.
Thank you so much for your responses. I think, in summary, one of the things that I'm hearing from each of you is really this shared sense that the individuals who are engaging in domestic work take their role in individuals' families and individuals' homes very seriously. And I think the other thing that I heard from an injuries perspective, and I think your comments in terms of saying that individuals feel like they're invisible, and kind of going back to what I'm hearing you say, Councilmember, that it sounds like, you know, that as we kind of discuss how busy Seattle is, we're not actually providing proper credit, I would say, in terms of who facilitates that busyness, right? And that is actually the effort, is actually the labor of domestic workers oftentimes that facilitate these policy conversations that happen in City Hall and in King County, because otherwise, and I know you're going to be speaking to this, Emily, folks have a lot of pressure where they want to make sure folks don't, the team has shared that I need to slow down to make sure that this remains accessible and that folks can interpret quickly. So thank you so much for that feedback. I really appreciate it. And so once again, I think that bridges perfectly into, you know, each of you sharing a little bit more about the specifics in terms of the policy, in terms of, you know, sick leave. Emily, I know you plan to speak to that. And then Doris, I know that you want to share some insight and feedback in terms of harassment and overtime pay and some of those pieces, really because, like I said, we're only as busy as how well we treat the people that care for our children, that care for our homes, and that oftentimes domestic workers actually create the meaningful memories that we all cherish and remember forever. And so if people can't have access to health care, if people get injured and no one is actually there, or there's no resources available for those to address those issues, then what kind of memories are we creating for the workers that many people hire in a city like Seattle that is very affluent in general? And I would say not very good memories for the people who help make sure that people have a good experience. So with that, Emily, could you share a little bit about the details of the legislation?
Thank you. I think that it began with the Bill of Rights, which is really just a basic foundation from which to drive the conversation, bringing the employers and the workers together to come up with, I believe, 3 major points. Fair pay. I think a livable wage is critical. We are talking about very, very basic things here. Sick leave mandated is very critical. And the third point, I can't remember right now, it might have been an employment agreement, a written agreement to establish the expectations and to limit misunderstandings. And again, employers really want to do the right thing. I attended a Hand in Hand, which is a fantastic organization, seminar recently where somebody commented that nobody shows up at your front door with a HR book, right, and tells you how to be an employer. The reality is that employers want to do the right thing. They know that without their homes and their loved ones and their children being well cared for, they can't go and do the busy work in this city that needs to get done right now, because this is a very vibrant city with a lot going on. So those are the 3 things that I believe are being addressed. And if I'm incorrect, let me know. I believe it.
No, I think you're correct.
Sick leave, the employment agreement, and a fair, livable wage.
Yeah, and that's really important. Thank you. That's okay. And those are, and it's true. The families are willing to work towards this, and they want to make this happen. I had worked with a few families, and they're always been respectful, and they're always been. I've been really lucky. Like what I guess, like I feel lucky, as Johnny was saying earlier. Like, my families have always, reach out to me and ask me how I feel, and checking in and trying to get the valid points from both sides. And talking a little bit specifically about policy, like you were saying, like minimum wage is one huge thing that for nannies and domestic workers also, it's a really important issue, because sometimes they can I've heard stories that they're not being fair with their domestic worker, and I think, like you were saying, there are other families for sure they want to help, and that's what we need. We need to create that standard so that other families join and learn, because it's a lot to do with like the misinformation about it, right? We don't know, like you say, we don't have as you employers, you don't have an HR manual, right? And so it's important for us to if we know, share that with our employers and say, minimum wage is a real big case. We're saying that workers' compensation, a lot of nannies that get hurt during the job, they don't get paid because probably the families don't think that is an actual thing, right? If we need a sick day, that's another important thing that we are trying to get, and also to fight or far away from harassment and discrimination, which it can also happen. So we want to add that, and as a part of the policy, we want that. And I know Council Teresa Mosqueda is trying to do that for us, and we're really lucky again to have you on board with this.
I have a question for you, Johnny. I know just reading kind of, your work with Casa Latina and Working Washington, and I know I've heard kind of consistently, folks being invisible. So can you share a little bit about why it would be important to be able to access organizations like Working Washington and Casa Latina as a worker, in terms of, being able to gather with other workers who are having the same experience?
I'm going to share this, and I'm going to be always and be honest. And I'm going to tell you, we have we are part from the community, and we are working to get the same rights like other workers. Because we are not part from the union, we don't have the same equal rights like others. And being domestic workers, we come to the time that it's not enough. And plus, we are in the city, and everybody we know that we are in the climate that we get discriminated. That doesn't care where you come from. If you are a Latino, we know we have a very good policy or a police, but then sometimes these people, they're not so free to say about their status. And I would love to tell everybody if they can come to Casa Latina or work in Washington and let them know if something happened with them. Talking about these people that they don't want to talk because in their status here in the country, they're not ready. And plus, be a domestic worker is we are very loyal. We are the person who right there behind the door in your house and taking care from the A to the C. And we want to be visible, not invisible anymore.
Thank you so much. And so I do know that we have a poll, and also the council member is going to kind of wrap up that section for us. And so are the poll results ready yet, or do we want to hold on a moment? They haven't been announced yet? Okay. So we're just going to hold on a minute on those as the team kind of collects responses. And with that, council member, could you kind of wrap this up for us? I mean, as you hear the responses in terms of the invisibility of folks and equal rights, like what are you hearing and what are you seeing?
I would love to throw another poll question out there for folks. I'm really interested, based on what we just heard, to hear what we can gather from the community that's listening. I'd love to know, in your perspective, we want to do everything, and we are currently working on everything, just so you know. But I'd love to know, in your perspective, what would you like to weigh in on? Do you think that wages and benefits are the most important thing? Do you think training, harassment, and discrimination policies are important? Do you think education and outreach is important, or scheduling rights, So we're going to put the poll online. If folks can go ahead and vote on that, we'd love to get your feedback on that, because I have heard all of the above. I hope that we've made it possible for folks to write in all of the above. But if not, we're happy to hear what the issue is that raises to the top. For me, this is really about how do we create the pathways for opportunity for us to accomplish these policies. You know, I've spent my entire career working on standing up and fighting for health care for kiddos and families when I was at the Children's Alliance and with the Community Health Plan of Washington. In the last 7 years, I've worked with unions and workers at the AFL-CIO, standing up and fighting for workers' rights. And in doing so, we also know that the policies that we pass are only going to be felt by the workers if they are workable for the employers. If we get more than pieces of pen on a piece of paper, if we do more than pen on a piece of paper, that's what's going to translate into changing people's lives. So for me, I want to make sure that everything that we pass is implementable and that we do outreach and education both for workers and employers so that they know their rights and responsibility under the law. For me, it's also really important that we look at some of the major priority issues that we've heard about. You mentioned wages and sick leave. You mentioned contracts. We also know that training is really important for workers to know their requirements and opportunities under the law to speak up for their rights, and for employers to know what it looks like to draft a contract or to know where to go if they have a question. We hear overall that training is really important, so that'll be a key component of the law. Another piece that I'm really interested in is learning from other examples that we see work well for individuals who don't have a traditional work environment. So let's think about construction workers, for example. We know a lot of construction workers work for one company in the morning on one site, and then they work for another company in the afternoon on another site. But we also want to make sure that they have the opportunity to access paid sick leave, vacation time, to be with their family and friends like my brother-in-law. So for me, it's looking at existing policies that work. So as we think about paid time off, I'm looking at a leave bank like the construction industry has to see if there's a bank that employers could potentially pay into. I'm also looking at portable benefits like health care, right? What would it look like if we had a bank that employers and employees could pay into if they needed health care or leave? I'm also interested in making sure that we do have an opportunity for those who get injured on the job to have a place to go if they are injured, like the individual that we heard of who broke her ankle just walking downstairs, Martha, while she was vacuuming, right? And in Washington State, we're in a very unique position where we are one of the only states where both employers and employees pay into workers' compensation. So this is a great example for us to say, what could we do as domestic worker employers and employees to pay into a similar system and be able to access those services if we get injured on the job? These are things that I know we can do, and it's incredible that we have organizations like Seattle Nanny Network. The reality is only 30% of the domestic workers in Seattle, and we think that there's about 30,000 domestic workers in Seattle, only about 30% of those folks have access to an employer who can help them know their rights and responsibilities. 70% of domestic workers work for an individual. So we're really trying to figure out how we share information with employers and employees about the new rights that will be afforded under the law and create new rights, like paid leave, like health care, and workers' compensation. These are things I think overtime. These are things I know we can do because we've already done it for so many other workers. We're talking about parity, we're talking about equity, and we're not talking about reinventing the wheel. We're just talking about extending these rights to those who help make our economy run. So these are some of the things I look forward to. I hope I gave you enough time, Mozart, for the poll results that I just decided to throw out there for us to get some feedback on those. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's about 6:45, a little bit after 6:45. I just want to offer that, Councilmember, I'm so grateful that you did share out the poll question because I think I want to make sure earlier in the conversation there was also a share that in the next 2 to 3 weeks that things would be written down and that information would be crafted by your council member, your representative, representing all of this city of Seattle. And so this opportunity to weigh in terms of poll questions is really an opportunity to shape policy from your living room. and really kind of inform what you're hearing and seeing. And I think that's really powerful because as we hear stories, you're really watching right in front of you the opportunity to see real life stories from people impacted, and then at the same time, a decision maker, elected official, giving us the opportunity to weigh in. And so for the question that the council member asked, the question was, what is the single most important domestic worker legislation? The choice points were wages and benefits, training, harassment, and discrimination as a category, outreach and education, and scheduling. And so at 73%, there was an emphasis on wages and benefits. And at 27%, there was an emphasis on training and, let me just make sure there isn't an add-on. Is it just training by itself? Training, harassment, and discrimination. Okay, training, harassment, and discrimination. Thank you so much. Do folks want to say a little bit more now that we have pretty much like two categories in terms of why wages and benefits and training, harassment, and discrimination are important?
I do want to just emphasize that it's true. This is coming and literally coming from their houses, right? Because we, in the different panels we had, the council, the town halls we had over, or you guys had over the city, we all put together this. We all share our stories and our background, and it's pretty much what it shaped. And it's true, like it's coming from even farther when we, the people watching, and we're really excited about it. I'm really happy to be part of this, and I'm so excited to see other nannies being a part of it and raising their voices and creating a collective moment, empowerment, and we need that. This is what this city needs. We need to get together and like Johnny well said, like not fighting but working together, and that's what we're doing. Thanks to you, Councilor Mosqueda, because these are the spaces that create that, and these are the people that need to be shaping this lead, and we're so
healthcare for workers as well. And if you could just speak to that for, or anyone could speak to that.
You need to start? Okay. So, yeah, a lot of what we've heard about is the concern that folks don't have access to health care. So there's really an opportunity here for us to look at, as I was mentioning before, what it might look like to do portable benefits, almost like a bank, where employers and maybe employees could pay into a bank that could allow them to have access to things like health care. This is something that I think will take a little bit of innovation, conversations with employers and employees. It might be something that we would want to look at the national and other state examples for ideas and policy seeds, but it is absolutely an area where we know we need to take action and to begin the conversation about what health care might look like. We know that nannies can't be there to take care of our kiddos if they're sick. We also know that we don't want individuals who don't have health insurance to take care of our elders who are already more susceptible to diseases and infection. So it's good for the health of our families, it's good for the health of our local economy, and it's good for the health of the workers to be able to have access to health care. And you know what we found out when we did statewide policies like sick leave implementation is that when workers have access to things like sick leave, they have higher retention rates, they have higher satisfaction rates, and employers spend less money trying to train and hire new people. So it's actually good for the employer as well when folks have access to health care. That'll definitely be something that we're looking at in this piece of legislation.
Can I quickly?
Before we collect comments, because I know we have a few questions. Councilmember, if you could briefly Councilmember, thank you so much. The panelists do want to respond to a lot of your comments. I want to make sure for folks listening at home who might be going to another event or putting the kids to bed, if you could kind of share when's the next committee meeting, what's the process for input and legislation review and calendar, just really quickly from a calendar perspective. If you have that so that to close out the panelists can share their remarks broadly. That'd be really helpful.
Before I do that, did you want to say something on healthcare real quick?
Just I wanted to kind of translate what those portable benefits will be and who and how will they be helping to our community. And that will be like for part-time nannies, for domestic house cleaners that they go to different houses, that they have different employers. I've been a part-time nanny, and I know like it can be difficult or hard to work, certain hours and certain times, and obviously, basing or starting from that, create those portable benefits that we can reach out and take advantage of. So just wanted to clarify that. Sorry, yeah.
And I want to add, too, that we're really looking to make it equitable for both the employer and the employee. You don't want employers to be frightened by the idea that they will be that this will be unattainable or unaffordable. This is a situation where the employees are paying into into their workers the portable benefits, and that everybody's participating and coming in to solve the problem together, right? Yeah. And now I'll hand it over to you.
Johnny, do you have one more thing on that? Sorry.
Well, thank you, Teresa Mosqueda. I am part of the Casa Latina, and I'm so happy to be here. And I'm going to be telling you this. The Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, everybody, we're going to be there. Doesn't care if any race. The Bill of Rights is going to be even for my LGBTQ, because here in Seattle is a diversity of cultures. I know and I can trust in the Seattle society. And been telling you this, my employers, they're very nice with me. And plus, I give you not 100, I give you a 1,000%. And plus, Seattle is a city that don't discriminate nobody. Doesn't care your gender, doesn't care your language, doesn't care your race. Casa Latina and Work in Washington is a place that everybody can come and knock the door. And I know for sure everybody who's knocking the door from these beautiful organizations, they're going to be open the door, because then they don't discriminate nobody else. And I've been here in Seattle, and that's why I am in love with the city. And plus, thanks to you, Councilmember Mosqueda, you made me feel so good. And I can trust in you, because then you are working with us. You represent plus my culture, but then you represent the culture from this country. And I can trust you 100%. And that's what I'm adding right now.
Really quickly, I feel like I haven't thanked Councilmember Mosqueda enough, because she is truly a champion for this cause, and really want to underscore that right now. And I want to tell you that that there's an opportunity right now for Seattle to really be on the national stage in terms of the policy that they're forming right now.
That's so exciting. Well, I would be remiss in saying the praise is not I don't earn any of it, because really all of these ideas come directly from you all. So thank you for your ongoing conversation about how do we improve the policies and laws. I really appreciate it. I also wanted to just take a quick minute to say you've heard a lot of policy ideas. We are going to put out a robust policy that tries to incorporate as many policy and directives as possible. where there's opportunities for us to try to evaluate where we might need more input or more strategies or a little bit more time, we are also looking at maybe a table to pull together a group that would have ongoing conversations about how do we form rights and responsibilities with employers and employees at the table and community partners, because we want to make sure that everyone has a role in continuing to evolve this policy discussion. But we want to move forward on some of the policies that we know are low-hanging fruit. Wages, sick leave, trainings, contracts. These are some things that we know people have really been calling for, and there's been unanimity there. So we're going to be working with you. If you'd like to provide feedback and you haven't yet, you can email us at domesticworkers@seattle.gov. You can also find my email online and my phone number. Reach out to us at any time because we will be able to provide you with additional feedback. And Mozart, you asked us what the next steps are and what the policies are. So we're going to have our next meeting on June 7th at 9:30 in the morning. There's going to be a committee hearing that morning where we will hear feedback from folks. And my hope is that we will be able to then roll out a policy for everybody to provide feedback on in mid-June, with the hopes of getting this wrapped up before the end of summer, so June, July. Looking forward to continuing to engage. And if you haven't yet been involved, thank you for logging in today. Thank you for listening into the webinar. And thank you for giving us your feedback as soon as you see some language. We are committed to getting policy passed this year. And you can see with a crew like this, it's going to be possible. And I'll hand it back to Mozart here.
So we have only about a minute left. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I do want to commit for this ending on time. As you folks know, I just want to overview or summarize what we heard. So I think we started with some personal stories of how people have been impacted and why people decided to get involved. And then the council member shared with us, why is it time to act right now? And then I think I also was hearing this theme of, that folks are being invisible right now, and that almost 30,000 folks, and 70% of those 30,000 approximately currently do not have a voice in the city, which is really, really important. I really want to drive that home. And I think what you folks observed who are watching or listening at home, if you watch this interaction, is that I think these individuals really want to make sure that you have as much information as possible. And I want to offer that to take the council member as well as city council up on the opportunity to provide input. And so as much as we want to provide every single thing that we know from all 8 states and from what we know that the state needs to do or the federal government needs to do, that I think that what I'm really hearing is that these individuals have collected ideals and that they're ready to take action. And we want to invite you to take action with us at home, at work, to make sure that your homes and our community is really a community that isn't busy for busy's sake when so many people are being left behind. So council member, I don't know if each of you as panelists just want to say a closing word of when you think about, why you're committed to this work, that you would share. And I just want to collect that you folks have been using the words trust, loyalty, committed. And so if there's just one word, and folks at home, if you want to put that into the chat box, we'd really appreciate seeing that, or if you can email if it gets cut off before. So if you could just say one word to kind of summarize why you're so committed to this movement, we'd really appreciate it. And from there, after each panelist has shared their one word, this webinar will be complete. And so if you do need further information, please feel free to contact the council member's website, the email address that was previously offered, and please continue to pay attention to Seattle Channel for future hearings. Thank you so much, and we really, really appreciate everyone tuning in, and we hope that you continue to share your feedback as we all hope that our city can prosper, but with equity. So with that, what's that one word that comes to mind for you when you think about why you're, doing this work?
Honesty. Please speak up. Don't be afraid. And we are here working together.
Thank you, Danny. I think I would say accountability, because we try to get that. We reach out we want that from employers and, of course, employees, and I know we can do it together. So accountability, definitely.
Thank you. As Councilmember Mosqueda mentioned, we were on Seattle Channel 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to use the words that I used then because I think it needs to be emphasized every opportunity that I get, which is interdependence. This is a relationship that is very interdependent. The people who take care of our homes, our children, our elder loved ones, we need them. And in order to go to work, that is my word, interdependent. Thank you.
Thank you. My word is healthy. When we pass the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, we will have a healthy community, we will have a healthy economy, and healthy families. I hope you guys at home will join me in giving a huge round of applause to this incredible panel and our facilitators. We'll see you on June 7th at 9:30 in the morning. Thank you, Mozart. Thanks, Johnny. Really appreciate it. Thank you.